Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last. But bad guys do. Rest in peace.
Wanna play?
Wanna play? Wanna play? Wanna play? Wanna play?
Wanna play?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Wanna Play. My name is James McKenna, and today I've got another franchise ranking for you guys. And this franchise ranking is a little bit different than my normal ones, because instead of it being something like Friday the 13th or Halloween or a horror franchise that started at least in the 70s or 80s or 90s, we're taking a look this time at the original Universal Frankenstein franchise. So that's all of the Frankenstein films released by Universal Studios, all the way from the 1930s with the original Frankenstein, all the way up to the 1950s with Abbot and Costello meet Frankenstein. So there are 8 original Frankenstein movies, and I'm only including the Universal ones, so something like the Hammer Frankensteins or something like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein won't be included in this. It's just the originals, and this is kind of the first video on an overall big ranking that I want to do, where I rank all the old Universal classic horror movies. So I'm starting with Frankenstein. Next, who knows, it might be the Wolfman, it might be Creature from the Black Lagoon, but we're starting today with the Frankenstein franchise. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. So my pick for last place is actually House of Frankenstein. Now this is the first of the trilogy of basically everybody coming in together and hanging around. So this movie sees Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman, and while Lon Chaney absolutely kills it as the Wolfman, as he always does, he's never put in a bad performance as the Wolfman, and this movie is included, and he is by far the highlight of this film. I just feel like Frankenstein's monster doesn't get up to all that much, and the weird thing about this is that Boris Karloff, who played Frankenstein in the original Bride of Frankenstein and Son of Frankenstein, was in this movie, like, as a doctor trying to resurrect Frankenstein's monster. But why wasn't he playing Frankenstein's monster? Like, he was in the movie. I will say, though, the bit where the monster just, like, picks up some dude and just homes him straight out a window, it's one of the coolest moments in the series, but I just wasn't really into his whole love story with the assistant, and also, they treated Dracula like an absolute bitch. I mean, like, he was in there for, like, the opening, like, 5 or 10 minutes, and then they kind of just kill him off, and they're like, well, he's gone, time to focus more on Frankenstein and the Wolfman. Yeah, for me, obviously this is a good movie, but in terms of comparing it to all of these other ones in this franchise, it's got to be last place for me. At number 7 is actually House of Dracula, the second House movie of 2. Because this one is just a little bit more forgettable, I feel like, than some of the other films in this series. Although it is definitely better than House, I think that Dracula is treated better. He does die again. They don't treat him like they should, but they treat him at least better than they do in House. And of course, Lon Chaney as the Wolfman, killing it again. And they even have it so they cure him. Like, in this timeline, the Wolfman was cured, and I think that was an awesome addition. The only thing is that Frankenstein's monster is barely in it. Like, he's only in it for the last, like, 10 minutes, and then they just kill him off instantly. But what is cool about this, and what I think makes it stand out, is the character of the Mad Doctor. I really found myself enjoying this character, and seeing him kind of go from, like, this normal doctor and kind of get crazier and crazier to, by the end, he's summoning the Frankenstein's monster back. He's reanimating the freaking creature that terrorized this whole town multiple times. It's just a great kind of arc for the Mad Doctor, and I like this movie, but not as much as some of the other ones. At number 6 is going to be Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. This one, I feel like I didn't find myself enjoying as much as I thought I would. I did really like the story going into this of how Larry Talbot, the Wolfman, he wants to die, and there's no other way that he can because of this curse. So he seeks out Dr. Frankenstein, and within that, they accidentally kind of re-summon Frankenstein's monster. The only thing about this Frankenstein's monster is that, in my opinion, although it is Bela Lugosi, and Bela Lugosi is friggin' awesome, he's like one of the coolest horror actors of all time, he does play Frankenstein's monster, which is a little bit confusing because in the previous 2 Frankenstein films, he played the different character of Igor, and also in the previous Wolfman film, he played another werewolf, and now he's playing the monster. And I just feel like he's not as good as the other actors. Like, he's just more like that. Like, he doesn't really do much. Like, he doesn't have a distinct walk to him. He's just walking around like a robot. However, I do think that the conclusion, the fight between the monster and the Wolfman, does actually feel epic when they're going down in this burning building, Frankenstein's castle. His whole lab is like collapsing and it's burning, and these two are just going at it. Lon Chaney in full Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster just going in, and they just have this awesome battle. And I think that is one of the best conclusions in this whole series so far. So, in my opinion, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman is good, but there are bits that make it a little bit less enjoyable than the other films on this list. Next up is Ghost of Frankenstein. I actually really like Ghost of Frankenstein. I feel like they expanded the lore of Frankenstein's monster after Son of Frankenstein, and it didn't feel forced. They used Wolf Frankenstein from Son of Frankenstein's brother and had it so he was Henry Frankenstein's other son, and it was good because it didn't feel forced. Now, obviously, it's the first one without Boris Karloff, and while he will always be Frankenstein's monster, I mean, there isn't really a better replacement choice than Lon Chaney Jr. Obviously, he couldn't reprise his role in the later sequels because he was playing the Wolfman, but for this movie, I just think that he's awesome. He's shot really well to make the monster just look as imposing as possible. And, I mean, dude was the Wolfman, and his dad played the OG Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like, how could you not think that this was the best possible casting option for the monster? Now, obviously, there were some odd things, like the ghost of Henry showing up every now and then was kind of weird, but I do like the flashbacks that we got to the 1931 Frankenstein, just to show, like, yes, we are in the same timeline as one bride and son. So that was a cool continuation, and also, I think that the overall story of this one, why Igor from Son of Frankenstein is kind of bringing him back, because he wants to switch his brain with the monster, so Igor can walk around with this just massive, imposing body of the monster and just kind of like try and take over as much as he can. It's a pretty interesting and cool idea, and I think that they pull it off really well. So I actually really do like Ghost of Frankenstein, and for me it comes in at number 5. And coming in at number 4 is a movie that just, it left me speechless afterwards because of just how good it was, and that is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Oh my god, I loved this film. I mean, first off, it's Bela Lugosi playing Dracula. This is the only other time that he played Dracula, other than his original portrayal of the character back in Dracula from 1931, directed by Todd Browning. So he comes back and plays Dracula to absolute perfection, like nobody else could ever dream of playing him like he does. And we get scenes of Bela Lugosi's Dracula fighting with Lon Chaney's Wolfman. Hell yeah! It's also really funny, like, Abbott and Costello are freaking jerks the whole time, and they're hilarious. They still to this day are just so funny in all these movies that they're in, and despite the fact that this is a horror comedy, I also really liked how they didn't turn the characters into jokes. The Wolfman was still the Wolfman, the monster was still the monster, and Count Dracula was still Count Dracula. And there was just so much crazy chaos going on. The very end, the Wolfman grabbing the Dracula bat and swanton bombing off a freaking balcony, down a cliff, into a river. Hell yeah! And then finally, the very end scene is one of my favorite things literally ever. As Abbot and Costello, they're on the boat, they're about to drive away, they're like, we just beat everybody, we just beat all the freaking monsters. And then all of a sudden, somebody says something, and you hear, wait a minute, who said that? And then you hear, it was me, the Invisible Man! Yes! Yes! The Invisible Man at the very end, making a surprise cameo. Oh my god, I love this film. Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein comes in at number 4. It was fantastic. Coming in at number 3 is actually a popular pick for number 1, and that is Bride of Frankenstein. And I can see why it's such a popular pick for number 1. Because basically, as Tony Bloodbath said in me and Mike's last live stream, this is the first ever sequel that people actually gave a damn about. It's the first sequel that actually continued off of the first one with the same cast and had just as good of a story that made people wanting more. It added so much to the original Frankenstein and took away nothing. Just the explanation of how the monster survived the fire, well, he just lived right through it. It's the perfect explanation. You don't need to over-explain Frankenstein's monster, and that was perfect. And I just love how much they add to his character, like adding him starting to learn how to talk, and he starts to become more of a good guy and a misunderstood monster as he's hanging out with a blind man. It's such a good movie, and it's one of the most gripping movies in the entire series. It's so good, and for as good of a sequel as this is, I feel like it doesn't get the credit that it deserves for being the first real, true horror sequel that lived up to the original film. This movie is it's so awesome, it's perfect. Boris Karloff perfects the role of the monster, and even Colin Clive coming back, reprising the role of Henry Frankenstein, delivering all these amazing lines like only he can, especially the ending. The bride finally lives, and he delivers the classic line again, it's alive, it's alive. This movie is just so good, and it easily is my number 3 pick. Coming in at number 2 is going to be the original Frankenstein. Now, this is actually the first ever black and white horror film that I ever watched. I had never watched one before, and Frankenstein was the film that I watched and made me realize, oh my god, just because it's black and white doesn't mean that it's bad. Matter of fact, it might even make it even better, because Frankenstein is just such a perfect film. It's a perfect book adaptation. Everything about this film is just awesome. Like, what it achieved for the horror genre, with it having the first ever real, like, brutal kill with Frankenstein's monster killing the little girl Maria, having one of the coolest, if not the coolest, riot scene of all time, as it's just like pretty much the last act of the film is all just this crazy riot of the townsfolk looking for the monster, and it's awesome. The kills that he gets, the monster, are just so, like, they're groundbreaking, really, for the time that this is released. This film is just so good. The imagery that is put in this, the portrayals of all these characters, everything about this movie is it's so perfect. It has arguably the most classic scene in horror film history, summoning the monster. It's alive, and then when he finally rises, my god, this movie is it's perfect. It's perfect, and it easily lands a spot at number 2 on my list. But my number 1 spot is Son of Frankenstein. Take what I said about the last 3 films and just multiply that by like 20. This movie, in my opinion, is the single greatest horror sequel of all time. It's easily in my top 15 favorite horror films, even less maybe. It's perfect. Frankenstein's monster, when he finally makes a comeback, and you have to wait a little bit, it is like 40, maybe even 45 minutes before the monster finally rises. But oh my god, when he does, and he rises out of that pit, and you first see him in shadow, and he slowly walks towards Wolf Frankenstein, who's Henry Frankenstein's son, and then he puts his hand on Wolf. Oh my god, that's just one of the greatest character reintroductions of all time. I love this film. The only thing that I did find a little odd about it is that it does kind of ignore Bride of Frankenstein, like the monster again can't talk, but it's so perfect. It's so perfect. It's Boris Karloff's last time playing the role of the monster, but Bela Lugosi comes in here, being Bela freaking Lugosi, the best of all time, playing Igor, which is just this awesome new character that I honestly really like. He's a great character, and Bela Lugosi portrays him to perfection. All the way up until maybe the most epic ending ever. Frankenstein's monster, after terrorizing this town yet again, they're in the Frankenstein lab, and there's this like big pit. I don't exactly know how it got there, but there's this big pit of like molten lava for some reason, and the final scene, there's nothing that has beaten the monster until finally he's standing, he's kind of staggering right above the pit, and Wolf Frankenstein is like on this windowsill with this rope hanging down that was set up earlier. I don't exactly remember what it was set up for, but it was set up earlier, so it's not like this is just out of the blue. He swings down on this rope, freaking Spider-Man style, drop kicks the monster, and he like falls back all the way into this pit of lava, and that is the end of the film and the end of the Boris Karloff trilogy of Frankenstein films. Hell yes. Yes, yes, yes. I love Son of Frankenstein. I love Bride of Frankenstein, Normal Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. This is one of the best franchises that I've ever had to review, you guys. So, seriously, this is just an awesome franchise to watch through, and in my opinion, the best of the best is going to be Son of Frankenstein. So thank you for watching my ranking of the Frankenstein franchise. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments down below, and let me know your ranking of the original 8 Universal Frankenstein films. Also, let me know what series of Universal monster films you would like to see me do next, whether it be Phantom of the Opera, The Mummy, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Wolfman, Dracula. Any of those monsters, let me know what you would like to see next in the comments down below. Now, my next franchise ranking, unfortunately, is probably going to be Children of the Corn, which means that I just went from watching one of the best franchises to, historically, one of the worst. I've only seen part 1 and 2 so far. I just know that it's going to get worse, because it's made by Dimension, who also ruined the Hellraiser series, so not exactly looking forward to it, although I am looking forward to the video, because the video on that ranking is going to be pretty good. So stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for all of my other upcoming videos in the future. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, and we have a live stream coming up over on This Is My Design. So stay tuned for all of that. You can follow me on Instagram at James from Wanna Play if you are interested, and you can also subscribe to this channel down below. You don't have to do any of that, but thank you for watching this video anyways. Goodbye, and good night. Bang.